There's honestly not much better than being gone out of your mind and screaming the wrong lyrics to Mr. Brightside at the top of your lungs. Everyone's been there. It's a rite of passage. So that's why when I got this email, my eyes lit up. I mean, hell yeah, come on. So in June, I took a long break from merchandise design just because I didn't want to get too burned out. I had a lot of stuff going on at the moment. But around mid-July, I was feeling more in my groove. So I hit up Casey. He's one of the art directors for Merch Traffic. He's a great guy. So I hit him with this, and he hit me with this. I hit him with this, and he hit me with this. Duh, come on now. Despite it being on a little bit of a short timeline, I just can't pass that up. So I'm up early the next morning. I get into the office. All right, I'm lying to you. It's the morning, but it's 2 a.m. We know how design brains work. I could be doing nothing all day. 2 a.m., creativity strikes. I'm looking at this mood board. As I scroll through it, I'm seeing things I really like. In specific, I'm seeing chrome. And not only do I see chrome, I see a poster that I made for CHROMETONE, which if you don't know, CHROMETONE is a product that I have on my website. It's an action set for Photoshop that lets you get that retro chrome look on your text or your logos really, really easily. And I made a advertisement poster for CHROMETONE. It looks great, got a ton of chrome on it. I mean, you can't not love it. And I had that up on Pinterest, and I guess they saw it and put that in the mood board. Anyway, I'm looking at this mood board and I see that exact poster that I made for CHROMETONE. So what am I thinking? You already know. That's a lock. I'm making a chrome design. That's one. Two, I'm looking throughout the rest of this mood board and I'm seeing other things I like the Xeroxy look, Xerox treatment for images, and even type, which is really cool. I'm seeing Vegas inspired layouts. Obviously the Killers were in Vegas for their tour, but that's really great to see as a designer, at least for me. When there's a big sort of motif for a project, it just makes it really easy to flesh out a composition. I mean, Vegas in specific is really easy. There's a lot of elements that easily convey Vegas. And so that makes the design process a whole lot easier. At this point, I've got some ideas rustling around in my head. And you know what's crazy? I actually never record my process for making these designs for merch for artists, because typically the process goes like I make almost 5 to 10 designs per project, sometimes a little less, sometimes even more actually. I'm making a good amount of designs for a project, and there's not a huge chance that even 1, 2, or 3 of them get approved. But for some reason, I actually felt good about this one. So I started to record my process as soon as I started on this project. I'm really glad I did. One of the first things I did was whip out my sketchbook, because I had this idea in mind for the chrome. I didn't really want to do it with the Killer's actual logo. It's a great logo, but I just think it's a bit too intricate for that chrome look. So I decided that I'm going to do sort of a little nice type lockup with the of the Killers in a script or handwritten script that I'm doing in my sketchbook, and then the actual Killers be a nice big bold serif, sort of a retro serif. One of the first things I did was start writing out a ton of those in my sketchbook with a pen and a marker. You could check out my video on making cool analog distressed type. You can even use hot sauce to make this cool handwritten type. For this project, I wanted to go a little bit simpler. I'm using just a pen on paper. So I'm sitting at my desk, writing all these does out in my sketchbook. I felt like that one scene in SpongeBob. Then I took all that into Photoshop and took longer than I'd like to admit finding the perfect the. But in the meantime, I wanted to flesh out the larger part of the type, the retro big bold serif for Killers. So I comped up this little type arrangement using ITC Serif Gothic, one of the best fonts of all time, just very broad, versatile usage. It's big, it's bold, it's retro, so much to love about it. And I added these 2 framing elements, which is literally just rectangles on the top and the bottom, just to give it some more body. I wanted to add some sort of a perspective to it, sort of give it like that fading back Star Wars type look. I don't know if that makes sense at all, but you'll be seeing this on screen. And from here, to give it that chrome treatment, I just used my CHROMETONE actions for Photoshop, which I mentioned earlier. Funny enough, in this video and for this design, I'm using the old version of CHROMETONE, which the new version I came up with about a week or so later, and I just think it looks so much better than the old version. So unfortunately, I did use the old version of CHROMETONE for this design, and I'm kind of mad about that because the new version just looks so much better. I'll put them side by side here for you. So this is what the Killers logo in chrome looked like with the original CHROMETONE, and here's what it looks like with the new CHROMETONE. So, you know, it's fun. Anyway, I wanted to make it 3D. How the fuck am I gonna do that? I don't know. So I did a whole bunch of research and I found this really tricky little process using actions where you're basically duplicating the layer like 60 times, and with each duplicate, you're just scaling it down a little bit and moving it back in frame. and eventually it kind of extrudes the type outwards or downwards in whatever direction you're doing that in. And so that was quite the process. It kind of looks all right. After some effects and whatnot, it looks a little bit better. At the time, to me, it looked pretty cool because I never done that before. But looking back at it now, knowing what I know now and what I know about the new process of CHROMETONE, which by the way has now 3D functionality, which looks a hell of a lot better. I wish I could go back and change the design, but you know how it goes. Actually doing this design and doing that process for this design is what inspired me to add that 3D functionality with that improved process to the new version of CHROMETONE. So without doing this, we wouldn't have the new CHROMETONE. Anyway, here's what that 3D chrome ended up looking like when I originally did it. And just for fun, here's what that would look like with the new version of those actions. Damn. And to the final result, I just added some lens flares, which I got from Studio AAA's lens flare kit. Then to get this looking less like shit, I threw a threshold adjustment on there and I set the blend mode to darken, which is going to isolate pretty much the black parts of that threshold. And it's basically just gonna give it a lot more contrast to the graphic in general. But you have to make sure when you're doing that to add some sort of a noisy pattern or some sort of dithering pattern below the threshold set to soft light or overlay, just to get that, you know, nice granular detail in there. It just gives some more depth to the shadows. So under that threshold adjustment, I have a sort of noise pattern layer set to overlay. Once I was done with the chrome, I added back in that scan type that I did in my sketchbook, and I spent straight up 20 minutes moving it back and forth. And you know, that's some real shit. That's what graphic design really is. I'm taking that thing, I'm moving it all around, finding where it looks best, and it ended up looking best right on top of the killer's type, which is like the most obvious placement for it. And I also added a fun little type lockup for 20 years of Hot Fuss right under it. Again, very simple. I'm using Helvetica New here, which is the best font of all time. And then just some rectangles to square that out and frame it. Then I thought the whole thing needed to just pop out a little bit more, so I added some inner glow to that chrome type to give it that sort of backlit look. And I also added some outer glow because it just looks sick, and that's gonna help it stand out within the rest of the design that's gonna follow. Then it's time to frame this graphic and add in some more overarching elements to give it more of a solid composition. I thought just a big circle will pair nice in there, and honestly, that's like my go-to. I'm just gonna throw a big circle in there. Easy as that. So I threw one in there, I gave it a stroke, and then I added this really cool sort of reflective layer style to it, which I think I just made myself. I'll throw the settings for that up on screen here if you really want to copy that. It's just a inner shadow, I believe, and a cool gradient or chromey gradient overlay. So you can go ahead and pause the video here if you really want this layer style. While I'm doing all this, I still have that threshold effect set to darken on top of everything, along with that grain layer under that set to overlay. And that's why you're seeing that grainy effect take place all over this design, which really helps to bring it all together. I tried to put a lot of different things in that circle, but it just didn't pan out. Ultimately, sometimes less is more. So I brought in this sort of blurred desert horizon image. I think I got that from Fuller Mo, so shout out Fuller Mo, that's the dog. I inverted that to get it all dark mode, and then I brought the hue back to blue using a hue and saturation adjustment layer. And what do you know, as soon as I'm doing that, I'm noticing this is sort of the same color as the Hot Fuss album cover. So next step is pretty obvious. I threw the album cover in there. I sort of isolated the buildings inside of it, added some contrast, made them a bit darker, and then I set that layer to darken just to isolate all these shadows and get that sort of album just sort of peeking through into that design. And in the end, I thought that came together really nicely. It's sort of like an Easter egg when you notice it. Finally, I threw in some supporting elements like this arrangement of stars and also this band of text that follows all the way around the big overarching circle. And by the way, the process for making that circle or the type follow the circle in Photoshop it's just a bitch to do. It's way easier in Illustrator, but you know me. I'm a Photoshop junkie and I'm doing everything I can in Photoshop. In reality, I probably should have taken that into Illustrator, and now design's finished. So this was the final design that I sent back to Casey, which got approved by the grace of God. Apparently, the Killers are like a notoriously hard band to get merch approved for. A little birdie told me, so that was pretty cool that got through, especially because it was my favorite design of the bunch that I submitted. I think I submitted maybe 4 or 5 designs, I don't know. But this is one of many, and it was my personal favorite that I submitted. Very rarely does my personal favorite get approved to, you know, actually go to print. But this one did, and I'm very happy about that. Here's a video that I think Casey took of people shopping around at the concert and picking up my hoodie, looking at it, analyzing, you know, all the design elements that I threw in there. Hopefully they're picking this up and going, oh wow, it's ITC Serif Gothic and Helvetica New. Is that CHROMETONE, the Photoshop action set by Durand Supply? I'm gonna buy this hoodie. Anyway, a man can dream. So that's pretty cool stuff. I mean, it went from my Photoshop canvas over here in Miami, Florida to the print of a hoodie over at Caesar's Palace in Vegas. Pretty cool stuff. Obviously, this wasn't the only design that I submitted. And like I said, I recorded my process for these. So I also recorded the process for the other designs that didn't make it through. And I'd love to go over those. So let me know if you'd like a part 2 to this video where I go over some of the designs that didn't get approved. Maybe I'll even go into why I think they didn't go through, or I don't know. What do I know? I don't know. So yeah, let me know if you want a part 2 to this. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you're enjoying the new little camera setup I have here. I don't know if you noticed, but I'm not on my desk right now. I wanted to switch up the scenery a bit. I'm sitting in the middle of my room next to my little drum kit over here. Maybe I'll bust out a tune for y'all. Go throw on some Mr. Brightside for me. I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace out.